professionals who are once again simulcasting this evening's program to their membership. All right, John, let's get into it. We're going to start with program and update on where things are. And then really the future is going to be what I call the Pentagon's program, and we're just living it. And we're going to talk through what was paused and what has been established in terms of the task force. And then really appreciate we've got a panel of industry representatives to talk with Mike Snyder of the CyberAB about their views on the enduring value of CMMC and their thoughts on the policy update from the Pentagon. And then Todd Gagnon from CAECO will be wrapping up with a quick update from the CAECO corner, and we will certainly have time for good questions. All right, starting off on the program side, we are very pleased to announce we've added yet another staff member. So we are continuing to grow the AB staff, and I'm really thrilled to welcome our new Compliance and Security Officer, Maureen Chaguna. And Maureen's portfolio is very important. You know, I've been talking about the position for a while. It involves leading the policing, investigation, adjudication of complaints and infractions within the ecosystem. A very, very important role. She will also serve as our internal auditor for all of our internal audits, both for our DoW contract, ISO 17111, our own 800-171, the DIPCAC. And then over time, eventually, she'll become our facility security officer also. Very important role. And I'm going to let Maureen introduce herself, so please give a warm ecosystem welcome to our new Compliance and Security Officer, Maureen Chaguna. Maureen, welcome.
Thank you much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful evening. I currently live in Warrenton, Virginia. My career started when I graduated from the University of Florida, working for a Big Four accounting firm performing IT, audit, external and internal audit advisory work. After leaving the firm, I tried branching out within the compliance space.
All right, will you get ready?
I did not find it interesting and went back to IT compliance, where I worked at Morgan Franklin. Shortly after, I started working at Leidos, supporting and eventually leading the IT audit SOX program and advisory compliance services for our local and international subsidiaries. Some of you might have been familiar with this, but before, Leidos used to be SAIC. So I actually started working with the company when it was SAIC before it split into SAIC and Leidos. So that was interesting. Shortly after leaving Leidos, I started working for BAE Systems as the first line of defense. Here, I worked very closely with both IT and the business teams. I was able to develop and implement compliance solutions, and I worked on several major projects, one of them being preparing for CMMC implementation and Identity Access Management System implementation. I stepped back after a few years to focus on my family, and I tried my hand at teaching mathematics of all subjects.
Did we lose you, Maureen, on the audio?
Yes, my Bluetooth just crashed.
We still have you.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So I teaching was fun and as an eye-opener, and I'm a foreigner by birth, so I did not quite understand the American education system. But now I can tell you all, I feel confident I can figure it out for my kids. I am a mom of 3 wonderful kids, ages 12 to 3, so quite a substantial age difference. Besides taking care of my family, I like volunteering at my local church and community. I love cooking, especially traditional dishes for my country. So if there's ever a potluck and you guys are around for one of our events, please come and enjoy. Major bucket list that I have, because I do enjoy the outdoors as well, is skydiving. So that will happen sometime.
I don't know why the fuck
it is a pleasure to be a part of this CyberAB team.
Oh,
I look forward to continuing to learn, contribute, and connect with colleagues across the organization and the ecosystem as I become more acclimated to this role. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Maureen. Welcome. And as pleasant as Maureen is, if she's knocked on your door because we got a complaint about some cutting of quarters, that she may not be quite as pleasant. But Maureen will also have a role teaching town halls, talking about ethics, reminders, and best practices. So good to have you on board, Maureen. Okay, we had a milestone at the AB earlier this month where we issued our very first accreditation. And that's what we do at an accreditation body. We're supposed to accredit organizations. And we're pleased to accredit the first C3 PAO to the ISO 17020 standard, the 2012 version, as well as all the other CMMC requirements. And while I won't name the company because we obviously have to be impartial and don't want a platform for marketing advantage any CPOs, if you go to the marketplace and you filter against accredited CPOs, you'll see who that is. I think Steve Bedell tells me we got another one in the next few days, so we'll have 2 accredited CPOs, and the pipeline continues to grow. The accreditation involves looking through their quality management systems, interviewing the personnel, checking the records, documentation, and also witnessing how they conduct the level 2 certification assessment that Kat Adams and others did. So congrats to that company, and looking forward to have more accredited C3POs. You'll see the new badge you get when you become an accredited C3PO. Of course, no new authorities. They have the same authorities that an authorized CPO has, but prove themselves under more scrutiny, more rigor in terms of meeting that international standard. So congrats. Okay, let me continue on and talk a bit about a terminology police. It's been a while since we did this, but given where we are and the need for a very precise and accurate terminology, the term that's been used, we want to kind of debunk, is CMMC implementation. I mean, think about it, that's not a thing. It's often used, most recently, talking about the costs of conforming to the 800-171 standard, the DFAR 7012 clause, talking about the cost of CMMC implementation, where you're not implementing CMMC, right? You're implementing NIST 800-171. So there's no such thing as CMMC implementation. Go ahead, John, the next slide there, keep going. The costs of implementing 800-171 to conform to DFAR 7012 are separate from the costs to hire C3PO and to prepare for certification. So we really need to be more disciplined when we talk about the cost of CMMC implementation. CMMC is just a validation or verification mechanism for conformity to the 800-171 standard. So please don't talk about CMMC implementation, or Marine might have to give you a terminology traffic ticket. All right, thanks, John. Let's talk about the state of the ecosystem, also a point of discussion. Still very pleased to see the growth. We're up to 1,866 level 2 final certificates that those C3POs have issued. That's up 12% since last talked about it. There are 58 conditional certificates that require a closeout in 180 days. And we currently have 168 level 2 assessments in progress. And so healthy activities, C3POs are available. We'll talk a bit about how many there are, but you can get a CMMC level 2 certification schedule if you call tonight. Any of those authorized or accredited C3POs. So let's look at the back of the baseball card, John. We're talking about capacity. You see the June numbers, July numbers. So we're up to 111 authorized or accredited C3PAOs. That's good growth. Obviously, we still have a lot of applicants in the pipeline. Of course, the most important numbers are the individual assessor numbers, and we have way more than 100 of those. We've got looking now at over 1,080 or 1,082. That's up 9% from last month.
Yeah, chicken's
over
really
2,000 CCPs, up 5%, and then lead CCAs. Every team's got a lead CCA, 637 of those, up 7%, which was always part of the gradual capacity building plan for the 3-year implementation program that the department had laid out. The practitioner community remains healthy. These are the folks available to help you implement 800-171 and prepare for your CMMC Level 2 certification. And we are standing pat on the training providers as well as the publishing partners. So a healthy ecosystem continues to grow, which is good news. On the international front, we continue to have very active participation. In fact, we may be authorizing our first non-U.S. C3PO this fall. The DIDCAC are getting on planes here this week, and we'll have to see how that goes. But it's really exciting to see the growth. Of course, CMMC is an international program. The same standard applies to all those companies within the DIB outside the U.S. that support our warfighters, either prime or subs. You You see really great growth in South Korea. Canada is really pleased with the energy that those two companies bring to the program. And then you see all the other countries that are getting on board CMMC as well. We've got a number of CCAs in the marketplace that are certainly available to participate in assessments of U.S. companies, but also as more non-U.S. OSCs get into the program, those non-U.S. assessors, I think, will be a great asset.
It would have been better if I had a thermometer.
And hopefully the pause that we're currently going through in terms of the implementation of phase 2 requirements will not hamper international participation. Okay, next slide, John. CMMC events are still up ahead, some good ones. The CMMC Pacific Northwest in August up in Squamish, Washington. Now, the Billington Cybersecurity Summit, this is the 17th annual, is not CMMC specific, but they'll be talking a lot about compliance programs. I'm sure CMMC will come up. That's here at the Reagan Building in DC in September. The Cyber Brews, in cooperation with CyberAB, is having the CMMC in Practice Forum as part of the National Cyber Security Conference down in Huntsville in September. Jessica's got to talk about CS5 East here in a second. And then the Society of Military Engineers, SAME, is having their small business conference. Number of CMMC panels that's slated in Charlotte for 4 to 6 November. And then the ESP Collective did push their event a bit to the right until after the task force's work. That's now going to be 9 to 10 November. That's our CPARS tour in Detroit. So check these out and continue to send us, if you have events you'd like us to promote, events at cyberab.org. And speaking of CS5, the show will still be on, and the timing is interesting of CS5 in terms of when the results of the task force might be made public. But Jessica, tell us where things stand with CS5 East.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Matt. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The timing is going to be perfect. CS5 doesn't just weather the industry change. We grow through it, emerging stronger with every challenge, and it's going to be no different this year. We are already over 340 people registered. Things are looking really good, very limited booth space left. And we're still doing CCP, CCA training. So if you are interested in that, you can get the whole package all in 1 week. Executive Leadership Summit is coming back, which includes a CS5 ticket. We've got the golf tournament coming back that'll be local. So definitely join us. Check out cs5east.org for 2 days, 36 roundtables, 10 breakouts, and hopefully a great visit from our CIO, hopefully. So we'll see.
Yes, we'll be inviting Ms. Davies and Mr. Duffy to, if they choose to speak at CS5 East, and the task force finishes their work on time. There might be something important to say. So, to see about that. Okay.
And one more thing I just want to point out, Matt. We do have the call for speakers, and the roundtable topics are open until Friday at 5 o'clock. So if you do want to speak, now is your time to get your application in, or if you have a roundtable topic, a challenge, something that you just want to bring to the community, make sure to submit before Friday.
All right. Thanks, Jessica. Okay, let's get to it. It's the Pentagon's program, and we're just living it. And let me first establish, for those of you who've not been, maybe have been on vacation, just review what the policy update from the Department of War was, to talk through kind of the context, and then we'll share some of our thoughts on what it means, what the opportunities, as well as the potential disruption to the program that can go along with it. So, John, if you would. So on July 13th, both Ms. Davies, the CIO, and Mr. Duffy, the Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment, announced what we consider a major policy change. In that, the Phase 2 requirements that were scheduled to take effect this November, right, the 1-year anniversary of the Title 48 rule entering into force, would usher in Phase 2, in which Level 2 C3PO requirements would be starting to enter into contracts as a normal course of action, as opposed to Year 1, which we're still in, where the department's been putting in Level 2 C3PO on select procurements. And so anything that's also already been put in current RFPs are going to be pulled back out. There's a memo Mr. Duffy signed to get more details on how it's impacted those contracts that already had a CMMC Level 2 C3PO put in going back to last November. More importantly, probably for this group as well, because kicking that implementation plan to the right wasn't the biggest of deals, because frankly, just puts us back to where we were in March of 2025 after the Title 32 rule went final. CMMC is a voluntary program, went up and running, and we had demand signal that was being met right at the very beginning. And so we're really kind of going back in time where a CMMC program is still in place, but those requirements contractually are being delayed indefinitely. Probably more important, however, is the launch of a comprehensive review of the program. I think that took us a lot by surprise, certainly me. And we'll talk more about what that means. The review is meant to align the program with Secretary Hegseth's Arsenal Freedom Initiative. And so you'll hear, you've heard, if you've been paying attention, consistent themes about needing to get more productivity and agility to industry. And we are at war, reducing the headwinds. So looking at CMMC to making sure that the program moving forward is aligned with that mandate. And to do so, Ms. Davies commissioned the CMMC Reform Task Force. That's going to spend 60 days looking at the program as well. One of their duties, as I understand it, and again, good point here, I am not speaking on behalf of the department, I am sharing my understanding of how this is all going to work. That task force will be reviewing the request for information that the department also issued on the 13th for industry to share their thoughts, their hopes, aspirations, comments, and complaints about CMMC. So the task force has data to review. Now, obviously, there was a public comment period, both for the Title 32, Title 48, but this is actually specific questions that they're asking. We'll come back to that later in the program. So that's what was paused. Just graphically, you can show, we're talking again about we've got a 3-year, 4 phases of CMMC. Go ahead, John, next slide. This is what was paused, the phase 2 that would have begun on 10 November 2026. But, as I'm going to stress here, that does not mean the CMMC program is paused. It is not been paused. And John, if you'll allow me to kind of go down the list, the program itself remains operational. It was not paused. DFAR 7012 requirements remain in force. So you've got those. You still need to conform to the 800-171 standard, the other DFAR's requirements in 7012. It's important to note that C3POs are available and still conducting Level 2 certification assessments as we speak. There is still great value in getting Level 2 certifications. Now, that might be self-serving for me to say that, but it also is the best insurance policy against the False Claims Act risk. It's also the best calling card to team with primes and other business partners. So certification is still ongoing. We also have that EMAS and SPRS are still processing those certifications that are being done. So the administrative engine is still in operation. John, pay attention.
I'm clicking.
Okay. Don't get distracted by the comments in the chat. The program office remains staffed and operational, as are we. And just go flip through them, John. The DIPCAC, this is an important point. DIPCAC continues to assess candidate C3POs as well as those authorized C3POs who have their 3-year DIPCAC renewal up, as well as OSCs that get called on. And so that's an important point. Taxpayer resources still being utilized to ensure the program has
that was also
support,
very
as well as DCSA, the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency, is still conducting Tier 3 investigations. Some of you wish maybe that would drop out of this pause, but that still goes on. And FOCI screening continues from DCSA, so they're still supporting the program. The RPOs are still available to help companies implement it 171 prepare for certification, as well as the fact that CAICO and all the approved training providers are still offering classes and exams. So nothing has changed in the program. It's only those contractual requirement phases that was suspended. Okay, so let's talk about what this task force is going to be doing. Again, it's my understanding, and maybe I'm not great, or not, maybe some of the details have changed since I was given an understanding of how this is going to work. Mr. Eric Bishop, who is the acting deputy CIO and the CISO of the NOCIO, is going to lead the task force, as I understand it. They've got 60 days to do the analyses, and then I believe Honorable Davies has said all 15 days to write up the recommendations. So really kind of a 75-day exercise activity to assess how the program can be improved and then write it up. And the task force, as I understand it, has different tiers. That inner core, that tier 1 is going to be internal Department of War personnel only. from across different offices. And around that, there's another tier, tier 2, which will be colleagues and counterparts within the federal executive branch, to include Small Business Administration, CISA, the Executive Office of the President, and potentially other agencies as well. So that's tier 2. Tier 3 will be DIB representatives, including CISOs from defense contractors. Then tier 4 are other stakeholders. I understand we are included in that. We also are a defense contractor, but I think we'll be in tier 4, not 3. The CACO under ISACA, my understanding, will be part of that. UARCs, maybe, and some other stakeholders. I don't know if any formal CRPO groups yet will be part of that. We've not yet been contacted about participation. Just been, it's been communicated to us that we will expect to be invited to participate in tier 4. So that is good news. Looking forward to sharing thoughts and data with the task force. And again, if you look at the calendar from when it was started, 60 days gets you to mid-September, another 15 gets you really to the end of the fiscal year. So I think in early October is when, if things go as planned, we would see some indication of what the recommendations are. Okay, so what's driving this? And again, I think no surprise, those of us who've been listening for the past year or so, that within the Pentagon and the Small Business Administration, officials there have strong views on CMMC. But Ms. Davies certainly also indicated through a number of channels that she's going to let the task force do its work. That there's nothing that's pre-baked or preset. This is not just a drill to say we have a task force. And my understanding is the task force is empowered to make recommendations to improve the program, which we should all welcome. But what's behind it? And these are, she's already met actually with some secret goes to her credit. She's done a listening tour. She'll be at Black Hat next week, but a week after next, she is already taking meetings.
She's going to be at Black Hat?
Stakeholders. And
that's crazy.
So these are both,
who was it?
Yeah, not speaking of
Kirsten
department,
Davies,
well,
when we met.
here is our understanding of some of the drivers, both from OCIO, ANS, SBA,
Cool.
and elsewhere. So the first one is no surprise to us. CUI data is not clearly defined, makes some opinion conformity to it and certification against it difficult. There is also that CMMCs are really focused on compliance. And I would say that was probably by design, right? CMMC was tailored narrowly to address a very acute issue, which was there's a standard for safeguarding CUI. That's a contractual requirement that was not being adhered to, and CMMC was a verification to ensure that compliance or conformity. So CMMC is designed to do a very specific thing.
If you want,
there's
I
probably more to be
can
done than just compliance.
mute
There's
this.
a
I'm
feeling among
recording
some
it, so I
that
can watch it
801
later.
are ones
You
that
can just watch
need
our
it.
stuff
I
if
don't
you
know if it
want.
refers to Rev 2 or 3 or both.
Well, I don't know if you're interested.
But I think it's also probably limiting, right? When you think about cybersecurity, 801.71 is, again, one thing. I think there's a sentiment to do other things. So you might see a task force that recommends additional requirements, and how they square that with lowering costs will be certainly a challenge, but something to be interesting to follow. CMMC does not include OT. We all know that. I think very, very early in 1.0 it kind of did. That fell out, so that's something that's of concern. CMMC also costs too much and is driving companies out of the DIB or preventing new companies
How does
from
the mattress
entering
look?
DIB as a barrier to entry.
Great.
We've heard that from a number of reporters for a long time. There's
Other
some,
one was
I think it's a misunderstanding.
8 inches. This is like 10.
Maybe 12. Look forward to getting that data as best we can for them. And there's also, I think, a sentiment to shift from compliance to risk sharing, meaning that the Pentagon can outsource the work, but maybe they don't need to outsource all the risk, especially small businesses who might be better served by having secure domains to operate within. Army Incode's got an initiative that's public that's along the lines, I think, of what the sentiment is that maybe not every
Go ahead and listen.
company
I want to go out and
treated
shop
the same
for a
way, and there's a way to share that risk.
I installed that
Especially
software.
with smalls,
so
that might be something that the new program has, with the updated program has to offer. I think there's a sense that the False Claims Act is a great lever to force conformity or compliance. I would probably take exception that that's not really worked very well in the past, but it's certainly a lever that government has. I do believe that the certification mandate obviously is a more effective way to motivate, but that'll be looked at. There's also, I think, some sense that the DIB needs more operational resiliency and more agility in the production line. This is, again, coming from the themes, coming from the Secretary's office about we need industry to be faster, tighter, leaner, more productive. And so the CMMC doesn't address that, and some may feel that it hampers some of that. And then CMMC should incorporate more automation, technology, and efficiency. And I think a lot of us welcome that as well. So I think the takeaway from what we're hearing so far, and it's still evolving, is that it's not just that the COI is the issue. There are other issues with the DIB involving cybersecurity and overall performance that need to be addressed, and maybe the CMMC program is a vehicle to do that. We'll just have to see. Again, this is not coming from us, it's what we're hearing. Now, go on to the next slide, John. So the larger context is, okay, well, what's in the realm, what bounds the problem? It's probably just good to review the COI governance structure in the federal government, right? COI is not something that DOD or DOW created. It comes from the White House, Presidential Authority, Executive Order 13556. It's a COI executive order. President Obama signed it back in 2010. That gives the official charge to the executive branch to safeguard COI. That authority has been given specifically to the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA. They are the executive agent. They own the COI portfolio. And what they do, and that's in ISU, not ISO, but ISU is the office within NARA that does that. They then charge with their authorities NIST to be the author and the maintainer of the technical standard for COI safeguarding. That is 800-171, both Rev 2 and 3, as well as Alpha. So NIST is authorized by NARA to develop that standard. And then the executive branch agencies, both DOW through DFARS and the others through the FAR, are charged with enforcing that standard. So I do think there's some limitations in terms of
there was
maybe
a better
a lot of us
model to get.
aren't thrilled with the 171,
This
but
one does
that is
better
the standard.
as-
We'll see what
The other
can be
one,
done
oh, this is a spring one.
in that
It's not
context.
memory foam.
Also, it's important to
Because memory
note
foam
that the
holds heat.
notion of
When we're
third-party
traveling on the road,
independent
it's hot back
assessment
there.
of conformity of CUI safeguarding is also ensconced in
Sounds good to
public
me.
law.
It's
The 2020
really pretty.
NDAA specifically tasked the department, the SecDef, to develop a
It was nice that
consistent
I got help
framework
in here.
Yeah, it
to
was.
enhance cybersecurity defense industrial base. And you see here a process for third-party independent assessment and certification of compliance. And even though it's a 2020 NDAA is still a public law unless they're amended or withdrawn by law by Congress. There's still public law. You can still find that on the books. And so we are certainly hopeful that there's going to be an enduring role for third-party independent assessment. And I imagine some folks on the Hill would agree with that. So we'll just have to see how these two things come into play with what the recommendations are. All right, well, quick, as we ponder the future here at the AB, thinking big thoughts, I'll just share a few things and I'll turn it over for our panel. But one of the things is we should all just get comfortable with the fact that this is a Pentagon's program. And as much as we believe in it and we have invested in our time and energy and emotions in it, it's the Pentagon's program, and leadership has the responsibility to improve the program. I can speak from my brief time in government.
No.
And you come in, you look at things, it's your duty to make sure that things are working as optimal as they should be.
Hop up.
And so it's certainly a prerogative of the CIO and the Undersecretary Acquisition to adjust the program. And that's what we're seeing here. And CMMC is always evolving, right? You go from 1.0 to 2.0. I know that they're already working on the rule amendment to get to Rev 3, and there was probably going to be more things in that as well. So this is not new, that the program is always going to be evolving with the times, and we shouldn't be surprised at that. Obviously, the messaging in terms of program review, everything's on the table, it can cause some jitters, but we should get comfortable with the fact that the program is always going to be evolving, and there is room for improvement. I don't need to tell this audience that we all have good ideas on how a CMMC could be made better, and this process hopefully will collect, harvest, and distill some of those great ideas. I would also say we should all offer what I call presumption of grace and good faith to the departmental officials, right? We're at war. The Secretary's made it clear what he wants out of industry, and if the CIO and the Undersecretary Acquisition say that the task force be empowered to assess the data, to conduct the analyses and make good recommendations, we should take them at their word, and we shouldn't presuppose anything. We certainly going to do that here at the AP. Having said that, accurate and precise information will be critical to get the good recommendations. And I certainly have some concerns that some of the loose language that's thrown around isn't necessarily accurate or certainly is outdated. I don't see CMMC being a bureaucratic compliance program, it's really the opposite of bureaucracy. BMO has about 5 full-time people. We don't have many more than that, and this is an industry-led program. And so to think through whether it's capacity, there's over 1,000 assessors. We've got growth. Their costs have come down, so we want to make sure that the task force has accurate information because it's critical to getting it right. And I also think ecosystem has not received necessarily the credit you all deserve. You answered the call back in the day when the department asked you to help them stand up this support program to secure supply chains, to protect the warfighter. And while everyone has a business interest in doing so, I'm speaking far and wide with ecosystem, you guys believe in the importance of this program. You've taken the risk, as all businesses do, and I think that should be respected. Also, I would say that, as I said earlier, certification remains the best insurance policy against false claims accuracy. There's no way around it. Maybe we'll have some of our pro bono attorneys next month to talk through this, but I find it very improbable that DOJ would go after any OSC who could show that I had a third party certify me. So it's the best insurance that remains so. I would implore all of you to take advantage of that request for information. Fill it out, share your thoughts, answer the questions as asked. This is not a chance for you to just grandstand. You can certainly put in your opinions, but follow the instructions. If you believe in CMMC, defend it. Make the case why this is important, not because it's important to you or your colleagues. It's important to our nation's security, and that this, or the ways you want to improve it, are the best ways to continue this important initiative. I would also say that you should all use those big brains of yours and come up with good ideas to improve CMMC. You heard some of these drivers we talked about. So, help officials get this program improved. Don't just sit there and complain that we've got to go through another program review. Use the opportunity, come up with some compelling ways to improve the program. We're going to do that at the AB. We'll share some of those next month, but we're going to take advantage of this opportunity. And then finally, stay informed, get engaged. You want to talk to your congressional delegations, please do. The ecosystem is a small business ecosystem. Over 85% of the CPOs are small businesses. The vast majority of RPOs are small businesses. And the majority of those companies, those almost 1,900 who've gotten level 2 certifications, are also small business. So there are plenty of small business that see the value of level 2 certifications. And so, but get engaged, get informed. There's great podcasts, obviously. Jacob Horn, Jason have a great one. Stephen Molter from IntelliGRC has one, and then Shelby and Bobby at Axiom have a great podcast. There are others. There are podcasts, there's blogs, there's reporters who cover the CMMC beat. Stay informed and get engaged. All right, John, I talked too much. Let's turn over to Mike Snyder, who's got some very special guests to talk about industry perspective, the small business perspective on CMMC. Mike, of course, is the new executive director of the Cyber Engagement Forum at CyberAB. Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Matt. And yes, tonight we have some special guests. I'll do a brief just so we don't take up too much time. But essentially, we wanted, as you've heard Matt talking over the last couple of slides, get actually industry input from OSCs that have been through the process, have some guidance, and you can actually not get it from Matt, Travis, myself, or anybody else at the AB or the F, actually people within the industry. So starting off with the lineup is Amanda Webb. You're going to notice that some of the ladies on this panel are kind of like a one-stop shop. They kind of do everything inside the IT cybersecurity realm inside their organization. Amanda is one of those people. She's over at Level 1 Fasteners, which is a manufacturing company within the defense industrial base. And then Whitney Palacios is the CISO, but you're going to know she's going to talk about risk. And I kind of really wanted her to come on and talk about from the perspective of an AI company. She's coming from Big Bear AI and dealing with a lot of government and supply chain flow down. But as we all know, AI is one of the biggest key things in the media right now. And then Allison Giddens, some of you probably already know Allison. She's all over the ecosystem, kind of one of the members that has been here since the beginning, just kind of tagging along with CMMC and helping us out. But she is the COO co-owner of WinTech, which is an aerospace machine shop. So she has a big play in this. She's been here since the beginning, trying to help us revamp, always kind of move it forward, try not to move anything back. But with that, I'm going to start with probably where I think most of the ecosystem is kind of left at a miss, or kind of we just leave them sitting out there. And this is some of the reform I think is going to be around there. And that's with Amanda, and talking about those manufacturing machine shops, and essentially with this phase kind of pausing for phase 2, what is the impact for essentially not necessarily your organization, since you're already a CMMC Level 2 C3PO certified organization? How do you see that for any of your pipeline or the contracting pipeline for something you have to produce for the government and move up higher or over to the government?
Yeah, I have noticed many of our suppliers, vendors, different things along those lines are not CMMC certified so far. So maybe giving that little bit of leadway to get them to the point of being ready by November would be great. At the same time, I still see a lot of the companies that don't take it serious.
For the companies that don't take it serious, or say from your organization's perspective, and I'll allow, because I think this is a topic that comes probably across the DIB sector in different ways, shapes, and forms. But do you see your organization doing kind of like any pushing to continue on the certification process, or at least some education in the self-assessment for level 2 and seeking out like a C3PO just for the advisory services?
Yeah, we have kind of contacted some of our vendors about that, and we're also preparing if they make the decision they don't want to go any further with doing defense work, because in our industry it is very common that they don't do as much defense work. So we have kind of had to look further into finding other suppliers for that reason.
I think that's the biggest point. Sometimes it forces you to use somebody else because you don't want that risk on your organization. And Whitney, if you don't mind, I think this is probably where I really like talking to you about having an AI company and being the CISO for something so big and dealing with the government or even in the private sector. Has that changed your strategy? I would imagine you've kind of gone, or you maybe didn't already, you already have that built in, but how does this affect essentially dealing with vendors below or that are tied to projects that you're working on? And your thought process as like they're pausing this, does it hold me up for 60, 90, 180 days?
Yeah, good question. You guys can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So for us, we're publicly traded, and the way I view this is as few ways, but first and foremost, our shareholders and those people that have invested money in buying our stock and watching the company, they do not care about CMMC certification. What they care about is that we are keeping the company secure. So for me, that kind of goes back to the DFAR 7012 thing. If I break it apart and look at what was the core requirement, it was securing the systems and the data, and that has not changed. That will not change. We still have to keep everything secure. So from that angle, there's actually no impact to us. In terms of our partners, we have a lot of the larger companies that we work with, whether we are the prime or the sub, they're continuing to ask what our plans are, even despite this pause. Perhaps that is because certain teams haven't gotten the memo yet or it hasn't trickled down. But all in all, I don't see any sort of slowdown on people asking about our compliance, about the controls, about the security in place. And even earlier today, I got yet another one even from the government, and while it's not saying level 2 is mandatory, they're still asking, do you have it? And for us, I think I shared with you, Mike, this is rather painful, so those of you who call you can snicker, but we got our level 2 certification 3 days before this whole thing got paused. So we went, yay, we're gonna celebrate next week, and then that never happened. But the way I view it, everyone's still asking, which means they still very much care. And for me, we will change nothing. We've gotten a certification, but certification is compliance, not security. We will keep doing security.
Thank you, and that's perfect. Yeah, I think it's you still have to do the internal. It's nice to say, yes, I did it, but I can tell you from my DIBCAC days, or most of us have been on assessments as assessors, it's sometimes the fundamental understanding is just not there for every company. So having that third party come in and actually validate it for you does take some of that fear of the risk, like, oh, did we actually meet the compliance? Are we going to have some issue? as to Matt's point earlier, the DOJ is not just out to seek anybody, but you don't want to be that vulnerable, one spot inside the supply chain that's causing that. I'm going to kind of flip this over a little bit and start talking about the actual supply chain flow down, and who better than to talk about this, somebody running the company while also talking about CMMC and everything else. Allison is kind of the key focal point for her company, the owner, the COO, the everything. You've helped out so much with this, and I get your perspective, but from looking at the flow down obligations, kind of like maybe talk us through your thought process over, I would say you've probably been doing this since 2020 on, as we thought the requirements are, but had the 60-day impact, but thinking out any of your contracts for a renewal or bidding on a new contract, how does that tie into this flow down, and are you going to require, you kind of heard me in the beginning, is it just a self-assessment, you're like double checking on it, a little bit more than a survey, or what is your process?
So yeah, we are primarily a subcontractor. So much like Whitney's kind of goal is, we are focused on reminding people D4 7012, 800 171, none of that changes. And so if we are flowing down those clauses, then those still apply. What we are starting to do that's a little bit different is we've noticed that there is complete in our sub tiers. We go out and get things painted, anodized, so we even have sub tiers. And there's chaos. Most people are saying, oh, the pause means cancel. Some people are, who were almost at the finish line, now I'm getting radio silence from a lot of them. And so we're having to make calls in an already very constrained finishing houses and processing houses. We are starting to push back up. So when I get a print from a prime and it's maybe marked something that could be construed as CUI, but I know this probably blows everybody's minds, not properly marked as CUI, and I will be pushing back up. So that's happening a lot more in my environment now, that there is, I am not so much assuming that it's CUI, I'm going right back up. So rather than keep the supply chain below me guessing and having to, whatever the saying is, pull the knot through the hole, I'm just going back up and asking for clarification. And I think that as we see more chaos, many of us in the middle of the supply chain are going to have to start making those calls and making those hard conversations.
And I'll end with one, if anybody has any additional kind of recommendations or essentially how a contractor or any of the contracting officers within DIB could kind of position themselves, like with your thought process. What one thing could you say to them right now, other than, like, it's to your point, yes, you got to kind of push back, but one thing that helped you or your organization make a decision, like, hey, we're not stopping. I think Whitney said it perfect. We're not stopping. We're not doing anything different. But was there anything that was like a spark or during a meeting or something that actually caused everybody to, hey, we're moving forward. Nothing is going to change this. I would say that would probably be the one takeaway from the panel talking is, for if you were that person sitting and making the decision right now, what would you say to them?
I think that this was said a couple of times. I think if you're already almost there, or you have been on this path, or you've considered it, just do it. Because if you do go on ahead and you get compliant and secure, you're gonna be ahead of the ball game when things get turned back on one way or the other. This is coming back, whether or not it looks like we're used to, something's going to happen. So you can still be behind the 8 ball, or you can get with the program.
I like it. Thank you, Allison. And for the rest of the panel, thank you. I know this is a little bit of time out of your night, but it does help all the other defense industrial base contractors kind of in that limbo. At least helps knowing that there's somebody else on this side. For everybody that's out there watching, we will continue this on in the CyberAB with Allison and the rest of the team, kind of keep this going through August, the rest of the year, so you guys can actually get one-on-one directly from the people that have implemented, gone through the certification, and are making the same decisions you have. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks to the panelists, and we'll continue, as you say, Mike, get the industry perspectives on the future of the program and how it can be improved. Okay, let's get an update from the Keiko, and I believe Todd is with us. Over to you, Todd, for Keiko Corner.
All right, thanks very much, Matt. And John, you can go to the next slide. So as Matt said earlier in the program, nothing in the Keiko has changed. We're still 100% operating exactly as we were before the pause. So all of our training and certification continues. All of our ATPs are continuing full swing, training individuals both at CCP and CCA. All the applications on our website are open to apply for certification. So we're just marching forward. We will continue to work with CyberAB and the program office and the task force as they go through the process. We'll provide whatever information they need, and if there's any kind of shift or pivot, we're going to stand ready to adjust. The skill sets, the scope, anything that might come out of the task force, we'll be ready to adjust to that and continue on with our content development that we've been talking about for the last few months. The one update, I guess, though, for keep everybody informed how we're doing with CCI. We had a few more since June. I don't have the change. I forgot to put that in there, but we have 73 CCIs now in the ecosystem, fully certified. Sorry, fully credentialed. They are credentialed instructors. And we still have 21 open applications going through the interview and the application review. So great progress on that transition to the credentialed instructor core. And Matt, that's all. Just wanted to clarify for everybody, nothing's changed with Keiko. We're still full speed ahead. Thank you.
Fantastic, Doug. Appreciate that update. Okay, we will hope to see you next month, which will be Tuesday, August 25th. Now, the deadline for the RFI is before that. That's August 14th or 16th. I probably should have had that on the slide. So please fill that RFI out, and we'll maybe we'll bring back the monthly poll and see how many of you filled out an RFI. 6 o'clock Eastern, 4 weeks from tonight. All right, John, let's get to questions and ask the tough ones first if you can.
All right, I will give that a shot. All right, so here's one probably for you, Matt. Does CMMC still apply on a contract that has verbiage related to FAR and DFAR's Clause 7012, even when the contracting officer states in the solicitation Q&A that CMMC does not apply?
Yeah, I don't have specific use case insight into what particular contract, but Mr. Duffy at ANS, I think, had a memo that went out with the announcement on how they're going to be rolling back any CMMC Level 2 secure requirements, certification requirements that may have been issued in Phase 1, right? Because Phase 1 that started last November, we saw CMMC Level 2 certification. Of course, it's a requirement for award, so some companies that got awarded CMMC or contract with CMMC requirements, I suspect those will be dialed back in the mod or option years, and any RFPs on the street that have that will be dialed back. So that the contractual requirement doesn't apply in terms of you must get a CMMC Level 2 certification, but the program is still offering certification. And when we see what the task force comes up with, I certainly hope the Level 2 will still be a thing. There may be adjustments to it, but that'll be a transition issue for the discussion.
And what would the benefits be if someone has a 7012 clause in their contract with leveraging the CMMC certification?
Yeah, like I said, you have a third party certifying you. You are, again, not an attorney, but I think you're largely immune to any False Claims Act risk. You're also going to be a more attractive partner to primes to be on their team, because primes are still going to want to know that you have conformed to the standard that has been set. And the best way to show that is with certification. So again, we're back where we were at the beginning of 2025 when CMMC Level 2 certifications are voluntary and optional, but I would still say highly valued.
All right, so this individual said, you said we should not use the phrase CMMC implementation and should say instead NIST 800-171 implementation. How can this be when NIST 800-171 and the CMMC assessment guide are different things that don't exactly match in terms of requirements?
I don't think I understand the question.
I guess they're asking, I guess the real question is why should we not say CMMC implementation? Is probably what they're really getting.
Because CMMC is the validation or verification mechanism that you've conformed to the standard that's required in the DFAR 7012. So now, there are things in the DFAR 7012 that are not in CMMC. If you look at the full reading of that, maybe that's what the question is getting at. But the conformity to 800-171 is DFAR 712 requirement. That is still in effect. So all of you who have that still need to have Level 2 completed. And if you're not going to have the CPO do it for you, then you'll need to self-assess. And that's where the False Claims Act risk comes in.
All right. So when the CMMC Reform Task Force eventually makes the recommendations, what office will need to approve them, and do we have any guesstimated timeline for that approval process?
60 days for the task force to do its work, 15 days to write up the report to Ms. Davies and Mr. Duffy, and then any changes or, I imagine we'll have to go back into rulemaking amendment, and that was already underway to get to Rev 3. So I don't expect any changes, just speculating here, that come out of the task force can be implemented immediately. And my hope and expectation is the program would continue as is, as that rulemaking amendment goes through its normal rulemaking processes. And hopefully, since both 32 CFR and 48 CFR are already established, you can do an interim final rule, so it would be nearly as long as it was for CMMC 2.0, but we'll have to see, and we'll get more discussion on that in the weeks to come.
So this was more of a reminder. Could you remind individuals whether or not we are responding to the DOW's RFI, and will we share our response?
Yes, we are responding. The CyberAB will be responding, and the CyberAB will be responding. And just as we did with our comments, the public comment period for the rulemaking, we made those public. We will make our recommendations public as well.
All right, and then this individual asked how many OSCs have applied for a C3PO assessment, which we really can't answer, but anecdotally, does the demand indeed exceed the supply?
It does not. No, there are plenty of C3POs that are available to conduct level 2 certifications as we speak. Now, some C3POs have a dance card that's booked well into the autumn, if not winter, but other C3POs have availability, and we're always building that capacity over the course of 3 years. So that continues to grow as we show the numbers every month. So that is a misinformation that there is no capacity in the ecosystem for the current demand signal. Now, I understand why they might have pushed to the right phase 2 in November. There may be concern that managing capacity then might have been something you'd have to attend to, but ecosystem continues to grow. There is capacity.
Right. So is the CyberAB still in touch with the CMMC Program Management Office during the pause, and what have they told the AB in terms of what is next in current implementation?
Yes, absolutely. The PMO continues to operate at full strength, and they provide our oversight. Our contract is with them, so we meet with them, talk to them throughout each week. And I've shared with you a lot of our understanding of the way forward, and that generally is coming from the PMO office. And so we expect to continue to be in dialogue with them, and we are standing by to support this process as best we can, and believe strongly in the value of CMMC, and we'll make that case to the task force.
And then I have a few questions that are tied to FedRAMP's release of CR26. I'm guessing that's the FedRAMP 20X. Has there been any impact to the FedRAMP moderate equivalency requirements or ESPs? We'll start with that.
Yeah. So there was some pull down of some documentation on the CMMC PMO website when the announcement was made. I think a number of those documents have been put back up. I don't know if the December 2023 FedRAMP moderate equivalency memo has been pulled or not, but that still, to my understanding, remains in effect, which means if you're using a cloud service provider that is not FedRAMP authorized, they need to have the moderate equivalency, and that memo lays out how that's established and determined. Additionally, FedRAMP 20X, which is the second part of that question, is not yet accepted within the Department of War as a meeting requirement of 800-171 CMMC. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. I'm told that is being actively discussed and deliberated upon in the building, but as of now, 20X does not meet CMMC or DFAR 712 requirements, so just keep that in mind. There's FedRAMP Rev 4, FedRAMP Rev 5. I know those go away at the end of the year. I think by then we'll have a FedRAMP 20X policy and potentially an updated FedRAMP moderate equivalent policy as well.
All right. So are FedRAMP 20X certified CSPs compliant and recognized by the 800-171/CMMC requirements?
No. Again, I am the messenger. And can I show you to that in writing? No, I can't. I can just tell you what we've got to tell the CPOs, and we'll be putting that in writing to the CPOs here very, very shortly.
Oh yeah, that was the next question. Will any written guidance be
Yes.
Just answered that, so we're getting there.
See, it's not a bureaucratic program. There's not much written down, right? We actually need to write more things down. We need more red tape, right?
I like the oral tradition.
Yeah.
All right, so here's one for Todd, real quick. Since all right, since the this is worded slightly incorrectly, but since the CMMC Phase 2 is paused, what will that mean in 2026 for consultants pursuing the CCP certifications? Should they continue to proceed or hold off?
Right now, I think the advice is continue, both for consultants and for professionals who want to continue to get hired on by C3POs and do formal assessments. There's no reason right now to pause. Once we get updated guidance, we'll move forward with any changes to the skill set, and if there are any required changes, we will incorporate that into training and make sure that the workforce stays certified.
All right, and then here's a fun one to wrap it up, Matt. Is there a role for AI to review SSPs?
So the AI issue, I was asked this last month and didn't have a great answer for it because we're still trying to read the tea leaves under the ISO frameworks about the role of AI. Obviously, there are privacy concerns. If you're taking a client's SSP and putting it into an LLM, but there's certainly a role for technology, a role for AI in CMMC, and I think that's one of the things the task force is going to look at. Listening to Ms. Davies, I think she wants to see more innovation in the program, and we want to be able to incorporate that. So that's increasingly becoming a bigger priority to figure out how we can best use it without obviously violating the sanctity of proprietary data, security, privacy, and the like.
All right, so are you willing to take one last question?
Sure. And there's still a lot of good questions. I can say we can inform our affiliates when we're running over, but I recognize I ran a bit long in my soliloquy.
All right, so this one is our organization was scheduled to undergo a CMMC Level 2 assessment this quarter and had already made a significant financial and operational investment, including committing to our C3PO assessment. With the Phase 2 suspension, we've rescheduled and are now in a holding pattern. What guidance would you give executive leadership at companies like ours regarding continued investment and preparation while the future direction of the program is being evaluated?
Well, I think I said I recognize that a lot of what I say might be seen as self-serving because obviously our biggest role as the AB is to support the CMMC program. That notwithstanding, on its own merits, certification has great value. We've seen this in other programs, right? And I would encourage any OSC that's already engaged as a CPO to get certified because that 7012 requirement is still there. And you're going to be a much more attractive partner to your primes. You're going to insulate yourself from False Claims Act. And I certainly hope, if not expect, that whether it's level 2 or a revised level 2 with reciprocity, that any transition plan from where we are now to a reform program will accommodate that transition period where level 2s will still hold their value. That is what I expect. I can't promise that. It's not my decision. But I certainly believe that certification right now in a voluntary program has great value. It has proven that from the 1,900 companies that got level 2 prior to any requirements in their own contracts.
All right, and I think we should be okay to wrap up. Any of the outstanding ones I will add to our list for next month.
Fantastic. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we will continue to keep everyone updated. If there's any reason for updates what I've said, we'll put them out, and if we need to jump on another town hall, we'll do that. If not, we'll see you in August. Stay engaged, fill out that RFI, talk to your congressional representatives, and we'll see you next month at the end of August. Thanks.